righty. Hello. We will call this Tuesday, May 25th meeting of the Caswell County Board of Health to order. We do have a quorum here present. Thank you guys for making this a priority during your day. Jennifer, do we have any public comments to hear tonight?
No, we don't.
Okay. With none, we'll move on to approval of the agenda, and everyone should have received that in your email. So I would entertain any amendments or motions to approve.
I approve. I move to approve.
So I've got a motion by Dr. Spielman and a second from Amanda. If there's no further discussion, we'll do roll call voting since we're still meeting virtually. Shannon, aye. Carol?
Aye.
Dr. Spielman?
Aye.
Amanda?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Thank you. And motion carries unanimously. My apologies. I know that's easier when I go in alphabetical order, so I'm writing you down in order now. And then Jennifer also sent out the minutes from the last meeting. I hope that you've had time to look through those, and we'd certainly entertain a motion to approve or any corrections.
I make a motion to approve.
Okay.
Thanks, Carol. That's a motion from second and a second from Michelle. If there's no further discussion, a roll call vote since we're virtual. Shannon, yes. Amanda?
Yes.
Carol?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
And Dr. Spielman?
Aye.
Awesome. Thank you very much. All righty, Jennifer, Health Director's report. What information do we need to know this month?
So, I don't know, Shannon, do you want to start with opening up nominations for a vice chair to serve out the remainder of this year and then go from there? We can't hear you if you're talking.
My daddy always said I needed a mute button. He is so missing out. That's an excellent point, Jennifer. Thank you. We do need to announce that Jennifer and I received word from Lisa Ashby, our vice chair, this morning via email that she was needing to resign her position on the board effective immediately. But she did thank us, the board, for the opportunity and said that she really enjoyed it and wished us well as we continued on with this work. So to Jennifer's point, that leaves us with a vice chair position open through the remainder of this term. Technically, we don't vote for officers until July. So I would entertain a motion if anybody had a nomination that they'd like to throw out there.
I'll volunteer to step into the position.
Thank you, Carol. So we've got a volunteer from Carol to step in, and Scott seconds that. Does anyone else want to make a nomination or throw their hat into the ring for the vice chair position?
I move we close the nominations and move to election by unanimous vote.
I would be okay with that, Dr. Spielman. And so we've got that motion in second on the floor. I was going to say all in favor, but again, virtual roll call vote. Amanda?
Yes.
Carol?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Dr. Spillman,
Aye.
and myself, Shannon. Yes, aye. Thank you very much, Carol. We greatly appreciate that. Thanks, Jennifer.
Okay. So there are not a lot of program updates this time. Environmental health is continuing to be extremely busy. There's a lot of new construction going on in the county. It's definitely a home buyer's market right now. Did I get that backwards? Anyway, at any rate, environmental health is really busy. Matt is back from his leave that he took when he had his baby. And so the three of them are continuing to be really, really busy. But they've gotten their wait list down from, I think, 6 weeks down to 0. So that's excellent. I did include a WIC report, and just one side note from our dietitian, Beth. She said that because of the way WIC is requiring face-to-face visits versus virtual visits to get their food packages, that the reports are going to be skewed going forward, so that 1 month it looks like things are really, really low, and then the next month it looks like things are really high, numbers are really high, and it's going to seem inconsistent, but it's just because they've changed the rules right now of how they issue those food packages. So just that to know. With home health, there was a public hearing last Monday night. No one showed up for that public hearing, and so the intent to sell moved forward. And so we had been asked to gather quite a bit of information from the attorney and accountant that we have engaged to lead us through this sale, or the county, I should say, has. And so we put together all of that information. I included that checklist for you guys so that you would also have that information. And then the other thing that I've given you in your packet is information that we gave to the Board of Commissioners. As you will remember, when we originally went a month ago to present the situation for home health, one or two of the commissioners asked for more information about what it would look like to save home health. So this is just kind of a part of providing them with as much information as we could in writing, of what we thought it would take to keep home health and to do it the way it ought to be done, and to try to invest in it to make it thrive. And so there's just kind of a one-page situational analysis. And then the other thing that I provided them with was a comparison. Medicare does.
Jennifer, I apologize for cutting in, but I just happened to flip over to see if anyone was in attendance, and I saw that Nate Hall was listed as an attendee. And so I'm wondering, Ashley, is there a way that we can bring him in?
It can,
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much, Ashley. Hello, Mr. Hall. How are you? Okay, Jennifer, I'm not sure if he's able to come off of mute or not, but we know that he is in here now if he can, so he can at least hear us if you want to continue. I'm sorry for interrupting.
That's okay. So the other thing that I provided was on the Medicare website, cms.gov, there is a way to compare home health agencies. Home health moved to a value-based system several years ago. And so star ratings and quality ratings became very important at that point. And so this is a way for the general public or other providers to go in and be able to compare home health agencies within a certain zip code. And so I put in the Yanceyville zip code, and these were the agencies that came up, these 6 agencies, including us. And so I just went through and made a comparison table of those agencies so that we could see what kind of services they provide and what their level of customer satisfaction and quality is compared to ours. So I just thought that may be helpful for you all to have as we move forward with this. The next step in the process is that Mr. Massey and Ms. Roberts, who are the consultants that were engaged, are compiling all of this information to send out the bid to potential buyers. And then when we get those bids back, there's another public hearing regarding those bids and moving forward to accept one of those bids. Anybody have any questions about that?
Jennifer, were you sharing your screen? Was that on a screen you were sharing, or is that something else?
I'm not sharing my screen. I can. It's in your packet.
Oh, okay, good.
It would be page 9 in your packet.
Thank you. I was looking for
I think that's extremely helpful also, Jennifer. Thank you.
The other thing, it does tell what kind of ownership they are too, whether they're proprietary or voluntary, not-for-profit. So I thought that was helpful as well. And I mean, you can see by looking at some of the quality ratings, in the quality measures, that's all information that we gather when we're doing an admission and doing what's called an OASIS. And don't ask me what that means. I'll have to look it up because I've forgotten. I haven't talked about it in so long. But it's part of a very lengthy assessment that has to be done on patients at every admission and recertification. And it measures their level of improvement, whether they have declined, improved, or stayed the same. And so you'll see that a lot of our measures are below our competitors and also below the national and the North Carolina average. And oftentimes it's just because the patients that we accept just are not going to show any improvement. They're just not ever going to get any better. And so some of our numbers are lower. It doesn't mean that our nurses and our staff don't provide quality care. They do. That's not what that means. It just means that our patients are at a level threshold that is not going to improve. But if you look at our patient survey ratings, they're right in line with everyone else. And then, so as far as where we are in the budget process, the budget has been presented to the county manager, the finance director, and I believe that the budget work sessions have started and that the budget as a whole at least has been presented. And I have heard that department heads are going to have the opportunity to come and speak to the commissioners and present our own program budgets, our departmental budgets. So that's where we are in the process of that. I don't know if Mr. Hall is able to unmute. He may be able to give us an update on that timeline. We still don't have a check in hand for the cost settlement, so we still haven't made any adjustments in the budget based on that. And then as far as vaccination goes, we have been able to work with Alamance County Health Department to get some of the Pfizer vaccine that has been approved for 12 and up. We worked with the Caswell County Schools to put out a survey just asking parents if they were interested in getting their children vaccinated. So we have that list of parents who were interested, and we've been calling them and trying to schedule them for our clinic either tomorrow or on June the 9th. And so I think out of and I don't know what the total was for the eligible students, but there were about 50 parents who said that they wanted to get wanted their children to be vaccinated. And then both of the other providers, vaccine providers, North Village and Castle Family Medical Center, also have some Pfizer. And so they are also vaccinating in that age group. So we have a vaccine clinic tomorrow. It's still the same thing I said last month. We're just not seeing the level. We're just not getting enough arms to stick. And we're still trying to work out details of how we're going to go out and where we're going to go. But we know we have to get out of the drive-through vaccine setup. We've got to go and get into communities and send out some strike teams. And so we're still working on that and have some ideas and some thoughts. You just have to get them executed. Looking at the census tracts that they sent out for vulnerable areas, and I may have talked about this last meeting. I can't remember. It looked like Yanceyville was the most vulnerable population census tract. However, they had access to, when you looked at the access bubble, it was a nice big juicy bubble. So they have access to the vaccine, they're just not getting it. Pelham was the next most vulnerable census tracts, and there are 2 census tracts in that Pelham Township. And they were not as vulnerable, but they don't have as much access to the vaccine either. One theory is that it could be that those people in those zip codes are going into Virginia, have gone into Virginia and gotten vaccinated, and we just don't know it. So there's some thought of maybe trying to assess what the actual need is in Pelham. But regardless of that, we know we're at the point now where we've got to start going out and giving vaccine. So we've talked to John Irvin Satterfield at the courts, talked about doing a pop-up on court day, and then just kind of going out into the community and trying to just do some pop-up sites there.
I know High Rock Community Center is interested in hosting a site out there in Blanche if folks are interested. So I'll make sure that Danielle has their contact information, I think.
Okay. Yeah,
And I
that'd
think
be great.
they have a Juneteenth event or something coming up at High Rock Community Center as well.
Okay. That'd be a good time to go.
And I want to say too, Jennifer, I think there is a Memorial Day event, and it may be too late now to look at that, but I think there may be a Memorial Day event out there as well. A veteran flagged me down at Sam's over the weekend telling me about it. So I think they're having something for a Memorial Day out there too.
Okay. I'm making notes. You know, there's a lot of creative things that you're hearing on the news. You know, there are providers who have gone into bars and done a shot for shot, or you know, or given some type of incentive for people to get their shots. And I think we have just reached the place where we've reached the population that's kind of ambivalent and doesn't really. I mean, they could go either way. They'll get it if it's there, but they don't really, you know, they don't feel like they're going to make an effort to get it. And so we need to try to get it where it's easy for them to get the vaccine and doesn't create a hardship or take much effort on their part to get it. As far as our numbers, at least 33.6% of our population have at least 1 dose, and another 30.8% are fully vaccinated. So I think unless anybody has any other questions about vaccine, I'll let James, starting on page, I think it's page 15. He's pulled some stats together for the clinic. So I'll let him share those and then go into the finance report.
Good evening, everyone. Hope everybody can hear me.
You're good.
Okay, good. So as the fiscal year winds to a close, from what Jennifer sent out, you can get a better picture as to how our finances, our finances for the different programs will fare. COVID has definitely disrupted our operations for the past year. An example is that we've seen 1,535 less patients this fiscal year so far. So of course, Jennifer had to do what she had to do, and so that's why a lot of our numbers are down. The COVID expenses for fiscal year to date are $296,000. We have recouped all of that expense from COVID relief funds. Medicaid revenue is at 89% of the budget. We'll be close to hitting 100%, but we might be just a little shy. Medicare, as we've been watching, is only at 34% of the budget. Private insurance is at 124% of the budget, which is very good. And like Jennifer mentioned about environmental health, they're having a very busy year. So our direct fees are at 103% of the budget. We still have $189,000 in COVID funds to draw down from aid to county, which majority of that will roll over into the next fiscal year. And that's a quick, brief overview. I welcome any questions, comments. I know I talk kind of fast.
I don't know that any of this really comes as a surprise, thanks to the routine reporting throughout the year.
Jennifer is.
It almost hurts your heart a little bit to see that much red, but
Jennifer is opening up the clinic, so more or pretty much as close to normal as possible. But we are at a point where, for example, some of the providers take vacations and stuff, so that will slow us down a little bit.
Thank you. I think that this will start picking up really more toward August, late July, early August, when people get ready for school and other things going on. I presume that we're doing childhood vaccinations as well.
Yes, sir. And we're trying different things also, Dr. Spillman, with the no-show rate. We're running about a 26% no-show rate so far this year. We can even call the patients the day before, and unfortunately, 26% still won't show up. So.
Well, maybe since more people are vaccinated and people are a little more adventuresome, that might change.
We have, also limited the schedule through the pandemic, but we're at the place now where we're ready to open back up and open the schedule back up. And so we're working on that. Didn't help much if you got a lot of no shows, but really trying to work that schedule and get it a little more full so we have patients coming in.
does anyone else have any questions about that? If not, anything else we need to know, James?
I can't think of anything. The boss keeps me on our toes, though, so.
All right. Well, we certainly do appreciate it. I just want to make sure that nobody else has any other questions or comments around the finances before we move on.
Quick
No?
question.
Okay.
Quick question. End of year report will come out in June or July? Will it be a fiscal year or a calendar year report?
The fiscal year ends June the 30th, so it'll come out in July.
Okay, that's fine. That'll be a little more telling. Right now, all bets are off from the COVID. Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. All righty then. With that, moving on to what I hope can be a brief conversation about in-person meeting options. As most of things open back up, we talked last meeting about the possibility of resuming in-person meetings while maintaining a Zoom option. Jennifer, as our public health director, do you have a recommendation one way or another, or is it more up to what this group would like to do?
I think it's more up to what this group would like to do. The commissioners have gone back to in-person. Some of the other public bodies have gone back into in-person. And so I think we do need to start looking at that. I think we may need to look at a different meeting space. We have two options. We could meet at Co-Square, or we could meet at the library. Would provide us with enough space that we could space out and still allow room for the public if we need to. I like the Zoom option, and we've heard this over and over with the commissioners meetings, because the public can often watch. We as department heads can often watch, where other times we may not have been encouraged to participate. At least now we can watch and listen to what's going on and feel like we're a part. So I feel like continuing with the Zoom option, at least for the public to be able to view it if they want to, is a good plan. But I kind of like to see us go back to at least having the option for in-person. I know a lot of the open meeting laws have changed during COVID. There was some legislation that allowed us to have this type of meetings, where before it was really strict about electronic participation in meetings, and you couldn't vote, and you couldn't, so I think some things have changed that will allow us to continue to have Zoom if there are members who can't make it in person.
Thank you, Jennifer. I know my preference would be a hybrid option, because I think we've talked about how attendance seems to be a little bit better sometimes too, because it's easier for people to get here, right? And when we talk about a county where 80% of our workforce works outside of the county, even doing remote work, it can be difficult to get to a meeting at 6:30 in Yanceyville. And so that could also encourage other members of the community to step forward with a willingness to serve. But I'd love to hear other people's. Go ahead.
I think we're going to need to keep an eye on, I think a lot of that legislation, if the article I read from the School of Government, a lot of that legislation maybe was tied to the emergency orders. And so at some point, the option could go away, and we just need to make sure we're keeping abreast of that.
A lot of the emergency orders are going to be extended or allowed to expire.
Right.
Not all of them, perhaps, but a number of them will be allowed to expire at the end of June. And then there might be some, for purposes of funding certain programs, will be extended. But basically, I think a hybrid would be a great idea for at least through the summer, for those people that might not be able to make it right then. But I think I recommend that we kick the whole thing off over at our chair's house with the barbecue. And
if my internet was strong enough to support all of you here and a Zoom call, I would be happy to do that. But as it is, it barely supports me.
In-person barbecue.
So let's see, we've got a doctor and two medical directors, but one ours and one somebody else's, both of whom kind of agree with that hybrid option. I wonder, Jennifer, does this need to be an official vote, or is consensus all that we need here?
I think consensus is all we need here.
Is there anyone who feels any kind of concern or trepidation about the idea of being able to go back to in-person while keeping a Zoom option? No?
I'll just share that I went into panic mode when I thought for a second that maybe we were meeting in person today at about 6 o'clock and thought to myself, well, I'm never going to get there in time. So,
I'm thinking that if we have a Zoom option, perhaps on a standing basis, people who are either traveling or there are critical things we handle. And I mean, we can talk about this more later, but critical things we handle and having an appropriate number of people to it, so we have a quorum. So I'm going to suggest that we consider this. We can sort of table this till we go over to your house in the barbecue, but that we consider this where we're going to go in the summer and how long we're going to keep that. I've found in other meetings that I've had that really does help with decision making by the right people and attendance and participation. So just a thought.
So how about after I offer this as a suggestion? Why don't we go ahead and plan, Jennifer, if we can find somewhere to meet in June, a in-person location that can support that virtual option, and try it out and see how we like it, with the expectation that we are probably going to do that in June and July. And then as part of that July meeting where we're deciding who the chair and the vice chair is, we'll also decide on whether or not to continue the hybrid. How does that work? Everybody okay with that? Anybody opposed to that or have any concerns about that? All right. Moving on. It's kind of strange because everybody's faces are frozen on my screen. I apologize.
Shannon, it looks like Nate is talking, but we can't hear him. Maybe he could put it in the chat because we can't hear you.
Thank you, Michelle, because I can't see anybody's face.
Okay. It'll take me so long to mute my.
Mr. Hall, try turning off your video and then leaving your voice on.
Let's see. Video. The host has stopped me.
I did, Mr. Hall, to see if that helps. Can you hear us better now?
Ashley, can you put the call-in information into the chat box
I can.
so that he can call directly in and speak? Because I know that has to be frustrating, and I don't want us to move forward without knowing for sure what he's trying to say.
Will do.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good stuff.
Or Nate, the check box is also an option.
Yeah, but I have to type it, and my typing is not that good.
Shannon, you don't want him to type it.
Well, I know me, it's hard for me to type out that much of what I want to say sometimes.
I'll pay for that comment later.
Well, it's funny because I was able to hear him say that, but then everything else, he sounds like Charlie Brown's mama.
So for those of us of a certain age group, when we were in school, typing was not something that we could choose to do unless we were going to secretarial school.
But, yeah.
Is he broken up for everybody else also, or is that only me
Yes,
that's hearing that
yeah.
like that? Okay.
Really.
Okay. Mr. Hall, we're not going to make any more decisions until you get called in. But if you don't mind, I am just going to kind of briefly mention and move on a little bit to board recruitment. Just making sure that folks are aware of the situation and kind of where we need to be focusing some energy. We do have that on the agenda. I don't know that we need to have a lot of discussion about it, and it's not an action item, but just wanted to highlight that we only have one more meeting with Carl Carroll. His term is ending at the end of June, and this is his third term, and so he's going to have to sit off the board for a while before he could reapply. Dr. Spielman's second term is coming to an end in June also, but he has graciously agreed to remain on the board and resubmit an application for reappointment to the commissioners unless he has changed his mind since the last time I talked to him.
I just do whatever Jen tells me. I just do whatever Jen.
Good answer. And then Kimberly Pickens has let us know that she has enjoyed her first term on the board, but that first term is ending at the end of June. And she would like to step down, but she has done some recruiting herself to find someone else to fill that pharmacist position. And so she's going to reach out and try to get that filled. But that will still leave us with 3 openings for the board. And, you know, we've talked about doing strategic planning and the importance of really thinking about what the next 3 to 5 years is going to look like in the county. And we'd love to have a good filled out board to be able to do that. And so if you know folks with a heart and a head for the community and healthcare and that would like to be a part of things, please encourage them to apply and be thinking about whether or not you want to step up and throw your name in the ring for chair or vice chair.
I think we
Is
have
that
Mr.
you, Mr.
Hall
Hall?
on now.
Yes, I think I'm in.
All righty, and I can hear you. What you got to say, Mr. Hall? You probably got a bunch. What do we need to go back to?
No, just one suggestion. I don't know about the health board meeting, but with the commissioners, the rules change when you go to Zoom meetings. So if we're thinking that we're going to go to a regular meeting, I would suggest instead of consensus, we take a vote, and then we can advertise it that way as a regular meeting with Zoom access.
Excellent point. That makes really good sense. Thank you, Nate.
Okay.
Would we like to go ahead and revisit that now?
Okay. Sorry it took me so long.
No, you are
technology
fine.
Training. No, I'm not.
You are.
I'm in Coast Square. I have to know how to get out.
Hey, we hear your voice now, and that's important. before we take that vote, were there any other items that you wanted to chime in on, or anything else that we didn't hear you voice that we should?
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Hall. Sorry you had so much trouble getting in. And I'm sorry that it took me so long to see you. Thank you, Michelle, for noticing that he was moving too. I apologize that often I can't see you guys. So at Mr. Hall's suggestion, which I do think is a very fine one and certainly probably on the safer side, would anyone care to make a motion to host the regular June and July Board of Health meetings in person, allowing for a Zoom option?
I move that we, effective June, that we begin our transition back to in-person full board meeting with an option for Zoom dial-in.
I second the motion.
Thank you. We've got a motion on the floor from Dr. Spillman and a second from Amanda. We've already discussed it, so I'll assume you'll stop me if you need to. Roll call vote. Amanda?
Yes.
Thank you. Carol?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Nate?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
And Shannon? Aye. Yes. So motion carries unanimously. With that, we would have come to the end of tonight's Board of Health meeting. Again, I would just please, if there's folks that you can think of that would do well on the board and serve the community, please don't hesitate to encourage them to apply. And if you have anybody that you would like for me to talk to, I'd be happy to talk to folks to give them a better understanding of what they can expect, or feel free to give folks my contact information and they can reach out to me if they'd like.
Quick question. There are some of these are specific versus general. On the specific ones, are those, must those, it's always better if they are, but must they be of that particular category of occupation?
Excellent question. There is a registered nurse position, which should be fairly, I say easy to fill, but not quite as complicated to fill as the veterinarian position. And it is my understanding, and Jennifer, correct me if I'm wrong, that if there is not an applicant available that fits within that occupation, that you can fill that seat with a general public member. But Carl's position is already considered general public. So it's technically one general public, one registered nurse, and one veterinarian.
Two. And one pharmacist, correct?
And technically one pharmacist, yes. And I haven't really put that one in my head as one that we need to recruit for, simply because Kimberly said that she would try to recruit someone within the pharmacy world to serve in that position. But yes, that one is available also, Carol. Any other questions or discussion around board recruitment? If not, I'll always recommend, or not recommend, some days maybe, I would always entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All righty, and a quick second from Michelle. And everybody said, thank you very much. Whatever anybody else tells you to do, please continue to wash your hands. And don't be breathing your germs out on everybody else. I hope y'all have a good night. Sure do appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night,
Thank you.
everyone.
Good evening.
Good night, all.